Hello, y'all. Welcome to Crisis in the Kremlin demo. So, Crisis in the Kremlin is an upcoming game about the late Cold War. At the moment, the demo offers a pretty in-depth content for the USSR, where we can play as one of the many so-called quote-unquote warlords of the USSR, and there are two start dates. So, let's take a quick look at this game today. So, in the 1985 start date, you can play as Konstantin Chernenko, experience, apparatchik, compromising figure, and memento mori. Thanks to a happy coincidence, Chernenko escaped poisoning in August 1983, continuing to govern the Soviet Union not from the ward of the Central Clinical Hospital but from his office in the Kremlin. Then we have Grigory Romanov, the Red Stoic. Being afraid of a highly possible victory for Gorbachev, who was too close to reform his circles, Grigory Romanov decided to postpone his vacation, and thus Gorbachev could not seize power as he did in our timeline. Now, finding himself in a minority, Gorbachev did not go for the position of General Secretary. Romanov wants to support some moderate reforms while steadily maintaining the socialist system of the USSR. After that, we have Mikhail Gorbachev, the man who in our timeline became the premier of the USSR and who initiated perestroika. Gorbachev wants absolute and total reform. He is a reformist among reformists. His rivals have no time to react and he seizes power. Otherwise, we can play as the three slightly less known figureheads. The first is Andrei Gromyakov. He is a Mr. NJET, party veteran who wants unquestioned authority. Realizing that Gorbachev was unlikely to be able to reform the Soviet Union properly, Andrei Gromyakov refuses to support him. Gromyakov is a 76-year-old patriarch of Soviet politics, and he is a new participant in the coffin carriage race. Then we have Vladimir Sherbetsky. So, Vladimir Sherbetsky was able to gain enough political influence after Chernenkov's death. Then we have Viktor Grishin, Moscow's chief unambitious particrat and old guard. He has united the conservative moderate faction. So those are all the candidates for 1985. Then for 1991, we have first of all Mikhail Gorbachev himself. Can you save the USSR? As Mikhail Gorbachev, or you can create your own general secretary. Now, I don't really know if this can be done here, but let's try. Oh, so yeah, we can create our own general secretary for this one. That is interesting. But before that, let's finish taking a look at all of the characters here. The first is Anatoly Lukyanov. The August events worsened Yanaev's health and he was hospitalized. Uklanov intends to present a democratic socialist alternative to old politics. Then we have Boris Pugo, a confident reformist who acts to the end. Then we have Gennady Yanaev, shadowy figure, weak-willed and reluctant ruler upon whom the burden of ruling the USSR has fallen. After that, we have Vladimir Zhirinovsky, staunch statesman, controversial politician, eloquent orator, being the leader of the only legally registered opposition all-union party. Zhirinovsky was also one of the few oppositionists who supported the State Emergency Council. Okay, so let's try the 1985 scenario first of all. And I think that we will play as Grigory Romanov, because why not? He seems like the kind of person who could genuinely be able to save the USSR. I'm not saying he would win the Cold War. I'm just saying that he could save the USSR. Now let's go to the game. Now right away, we are first in the diplomacy screen. So if we click on a country, then we can see its ideology. The Soviet Union at the moment is conservative socialism, meaning that it refuses to change with the times, and this is true for almost everyone in the Soviet sphere. But as you get further away from the main union itself, then you begin to see some changes. The Polish People's Republic is socialist reformism. Romania is socialism with national specifics. It is under uh, Nicolae Ceausescu. Then we have Bulgaria, which is conservative socialism. Czechoslovakia, conservative socialism. Then if we take a look at some other countries, for example, Afghanistan is conservative socialism. It is currently being ruled by the Parcham faction of the Afghan Communist Party, the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan. Maybe Libya. Libya is left nationalism. I think that is a pretty vague meaning of Gaddafism, but that's okay. Albania is socialism with specifics. It is still under Hoxha. Iraq is under the Baathists, so it is left nationalism. A country like India is leftist pragmatism because it is currently under Rajiv Gandhi, who was pretty socialist by Western standards. Meanwhile, a country like America is liberal conservative. A country like Brazil or Argentina are progressives. A country like South Africa is right-wing populism. It is still under apartheid. With that out of the way, let's take a look. This is the budget tab that we have where you can micromanage your budget. But in this video, I'm not really going to play to win. So until I know how to play this game, I won't really bother too much into doing the budget. Here we can get a variety of statistics on different types of aspects of the economy. Here we have the doctrines which you can research. After that, we have the sciences. Again, let's research something. Let's research modern computer architectures. After that, we have politics. In here, you can see a list of different people who are involved in Soviet Union politics, right from the most important to the least important. Let's take a look at some of the important ones. First is Andrei Gromyukov. He is a playable character. Then we have Mikhail Gorbachev. And I think, oh, this is Dmitry Yazov. I wonder what he does in a timeline where the Nazis win World War II. TNO reference. And you can also play along with these characters. Like you can appoint them to different things. You can get more information. You can start a conspiracy against these characters. For example, I can send Yazov to political exile. I can weaken his power. Or I can start supporting him. I can start surveillance on him. Let's try to destroy Gorbachev. Let me start harassing him. Then let me start surveilling him and let's try to send him to political exile. Okay, I can't. Oh, but I can weaken his position. Let's do that. And once we are finally ready, I can press the unpause button. And now we start looking at the juice of this game. The flavorful events which let you guide your nation. Dear comrades, appeal to the Soviet people. The Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the Soviet state, the entirety of the Soviet people have suffered a heavy loss. Konstantin Chernenko, an outstanding party member and statesman, patriot and internationalist, and a brave fighter for the triumph of the ideals of communism and peace on earth, has passed away. Today, an emergency plenum of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union took place. The plenum unanimously elected Comrade Romanov GV as General Secretary. Comrade Romanov has assured the Central Committee of the CPSU that he would make every effort to faithfully serve our party, our people, the great Leninist cause, so that the program guidelines of the CPSU are steadily implemented and the USSR marches into the new decade with pride and glory. We have another event, Euro missile crisis. After the Reagan administration, influenced by conservative militarist circles, settled in the White House, all the results of the détente of the 1970s came to naught. Our proposals to return to a policy of disarmament and reduction of global tension did not find a response from the American leadership. Since the beginning of this decade, the situation in Europe has continued to deteriorate. In response to the aggressive actions of the United States, we deployed several hundred medium-range missiles on the territory of the GDR and CSR and plan to increase the supply of weapons in the future. The US then began to deploy Pershing II medium-range ballistic missiles in FRG and other missiles in Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, and Belgium. The Euro missile crisis has reached its climax. Any further steps to deploy missiles will only lead to increased confrontation and the threat of a nuclear conflict. Maybe we should try to find common ground with the Reagan administration. My friends, for the last 15 years, with the sole exception of the fall of Saigon, the USSR has been doing nothing but compromise, nothing but détente. No more, my friends, no more. Increase the number of missiles and place them in Hungary as well. If Reagan thinks that he can ride his horse out of his cowboy hell in Texas and come and try to destroy the People's Revolution, then he is severely wrong. No, we shall increase the number of missiles and place them in Hungary as well. Force shall be met with force, my friends. In response to the ongoing aggressive actions of the US and the American leadership's refusal to negotiate, we continue to deploy medium-range missiles in Eastern Europe. In addition, we announced the deployment of missiles on Hungarian territory and an increase in the supply of weapons to allied countries. The leaders of Western Europe accuse us of escalating the conflict and demand that the decision be reconsidered. Never. We have more events. Second most powerful person in the party and the state. Mourning for Chernenko is behind. The country is slowly returning to normal. Now is the time to start working, but in what direction? Internal problems have been growing for years. But in order to carry them out, you need your own team. Now, we do not have a stable majority in the Politburo and the Secretariat. According to party tradition, the second secretary oversees issues of ideology and personnel policy and also leads meetings of the Secretariat. Among the current contenders are Richard Kosolapov, editor-in-chief of the Communist magazine, an admirer of Stalin who initiated the rehabilitation of Vyacheslav Molotov in the party. The second is Pyotr Demichev, Minister of Culture and one of the ideologists of the Brezhnev era. No, Pyotr is out. There will be no return to the Brezhnev stagnation. The third is Yegor Ligachev, a nominee of Yuri Andropov and an experienced regional leader who held the Tomsk regional party organization for many years. No, I don't want Andropov to be growing stronger at my expense. The fourth is Vladimir Dolgik, one of Yuri Andropov's out. The fifth is Alexander Yakolev, once an orthodox Marxist and proponent of the Shelepinsky group. He was a bully for nationalists in the Literary Gazette and after that was removed for work from the party apparatus. Let him stay in exile. And then Mikhail Gorbachev. No. I think that what the Soviet Union needs in this decade is a new sense of ideological fanaticism and radicalism. We have lost our edge. And so, Richard Kosolapov it is. The position of Second Secretary was taken by Richard Ivanovich Kosolapov, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor at Moscow State University. While serving as editor-in-chief of the magazine Communist, he criticized the concept of developed socialism, believing that it never really existed in the USSR, and the country was only moving towards building ordinary socialism. He is a firm opponent of market reforms and an admirer of Joseph Stalin. Good. Let me check on my politics again. So Richard Kosolapov is now the second secretary of the Soviet Union. That is very good. And what about Gorbachev? What happened to my conspiracy? It is completed 15%. Okay. What is this? There are unfinished research projects. Okay. Changes and reforms require new personnel. Negative trends have emerged in our construction, namely an increase in the volume of unfinished construction. Okay. Okay, so they want me to consider Ligachev and Dolgik. I guess there is no harm in appointing them, but let's appoint them. Let's see what they can do. More events. April plenum, personnel issues. Currently, the Politburo Central Committee, the governing body of the party, is in limbo since it absorbs two different generations of the party, the Brezhnev generation and younger party members who emerged in the early 1980s. Okay? And the next plenum of the Central Committee of the CPSU is due to be taken place soon, at which we can strengthen our influence. Let's promote the statists and orthodoxies. We don't want any sort of reform to destabilize the Soviet Union. Remember that if the Soviet Union falls, then like a domino, world socialism will collapse. The General Secretary Grigory Romanov made a speech at the plenum of the Central Committee today. Now, as in the years of the first 5-year plans, all party members need to unite as a united front in order to implement the reforms planned by the party in a new creative impulse. But for this, we must mobilize the best, ideologically savvy and efficient communists. In this regard, I make a proposal to recommend several comrades for election to the Politburo. Grigory Romanov proposed expanding the Politburo to 13. Mikhail Zimyanin, Richard Kosolapov, Sergei Sokolov have become members of the Politburo. The influence of orthodox patriotic forces in the party has grown. Nice. April plenum, acceleration. Even during the reign of Yuri Andropov, a number of economists and sociologists were given carte blanche to develop projects for Soviet economic reform. One of the key documents, the Novosibirsk Manifesto, stated a significant lag between the production relations of Soviet society and the development of productive forces. The authors of the manifesto named one of the key problems of national economy as the predominance of administrative methods of economic management over economic ones, and centralized methods over decentralized ones. So they believe that bureaucratic centralism is harming the accelerationism of the Soviet economy. They propose several solutions. Some propose to launch a policy of acceleration, expanding imports, budget spending, and recognizing the lag of the economy at the official level in order to achieve an advanced level of development of mechanical engineering. This program should raise our mechanical engineering to the world level in just a few 5-year plans. The second group proposes to restore Andropov's methods of enforcing discipline curtailed under Chernykov. The third, a group of young economists from Moscow and Leningrad, prepared a program of moderate gradual reforms. The basis was a combination of Hungarian and Chinese reforms. I cannot do the accelerationism reforms, I don't know why. And I also can't do the Leningrader and Muscovite reforms. So I can either start a policy of unity within the party or return to Andropov's discipline. I think we can return to Andropov's methods of enforcing discipline in the workforce. To improve socialism, it is necessary to put an end to disorganization and mismanagement, increase labor discipline, improve management and efficiency. Work in this direction is especially contradicted by bare administration and hype, replacing real action with talk. More reliable shield of peace. In May 1955, the Soviet Union and the countries of Eastern Europe concluded the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Mutual Assistance. The conclusion of the treaty was a response to the refusal of the USSR and socialist countries to join NATO. The friendship agreement was concluded for 30 years and now, because of the approaching expiration date, it needs to be extended. We will continue with anti-Western rhetoric. We must not go soft on these capitalist imperialistic dogs. The signing of the protocol on the extension of the Treaty of Friendship. Grigory Romanov noted, we are for reducing the severity of the confrontation between two military political alliances. But unfortunately, the other side does not expressed the same readiness to dissolve world tensions. The USSR does not consider it any longer possible to put forward any negotiating positions on arms reduction until Western countries show the same. One should not expect such measures from the current administration. Let me see what's going on in some other countries. We can invite Iraq to Comic-Con? No? Okay. Crisis in relations with the United States of America. Andrei Gromyakov has called me. Hello. Rising global tensions have led to increased confrontation and an arms race. The American media accuses us of pursuing an extremely aggressive foreign policy and continuous violation of international law. A few hours ago, the Pentagon announced an increase in the DEFCON scale to intense army drill. They call us an evil empire. The world situation is changing for the worse. This is a wake-up call. We have nothing to discuss with them. Anti-alcohol campaign. The latest campaign took place during the reign of Yuri Andropov when severe penalties for drinking alcohol at work became part of a set of measures to strengthen discipline, although at the same time the production of the cheapest Soviet vodka, Moscoviska, began, which began to cost 4 rubles. Just a moment out of character, I would like to say that the game is very interesting, but it really needs to improve its translation. Some of these sentences, they end really awkwardly, but that's okay. You can't expect everyone to know English very well. Anyway, the vodka was nicknamed Andropovka. The party most zealously advocates for the need for a new anti-alcohol campaign. It is led by E.K. Legachev and M.S. Solomentsev. Other party members propose returning to the experience of Brezhnev's campaigns, which consisted of increasing prices, and some simply think that we can just continue with the current anti-alcohol propaganda, while others want to become a folk hero by making vodka even cheaper. I don't really know what to do here. Chairman Grigory Romanov is not Jesus Christ. He doesn't always know the right answer. So in this case, he's going to roll a die. He's rolling a die on his personal table, which you can't really see, and it's 5. So let's give the people what they want. Release an even cheaper vodka. Quite recently, a new vodka, Kremlin, appeared on sale, which was immediately dubbed Labor since it went on sale before May 1 Labor Day. But the most surprising fact for the common people was the price. Just 3 rubles 50 kopecks. The people immediately associated it with the new leader, dubbing it Romanovka. Problems with alcoholism in the country are only getting worse. Campaign against racism. The evil apartheid Republic of South Africa is rightly regarded as one of the most developed countries in the world, but its success is built entirely on racial segregation. The National Party is the party of apartheid. They have created complete separation in economic, social, and domestic spheres. Special reservations called Bantustans have been created for the black population. Oppositions in the form of the local Communist Party and the African National Congress have been severely persecuted. ANC leader Nelson Mandela has been in prison for the last 20 years. The international community has imposed all sorts of sanctions and restrictions on South Africa, but despite the country's growing isolation, the ruling party is split into several opposing groups. The Verlichte or enlightened want reforms, while the Verkamptes or hardliners, they want white farming interests and a return to the old days of Verwoerd, Hendrik Verwoerd. In the late 1970s, the country was led by Verlichte supporter Peter Botha, who had to make certain reforms. These consisted of a tricameral parliament with separate chambers for whites, coloreds and Indians. Blacks are not citizens of South Africa. Okay. A far-right radical wing of the National Party led by Andris Treurnig split from it and founded the Conservative Party. Despite the Reagan administration's favorable attitude towards the anti-communism of the National Party regime, the United States does impose sanctions on South Africa. Now the whole world is lying in wait for a decision of the USSR on the issue. We obviously can't stay neutral. Let's join the sanctions. We will help Mandela and we will help the Communist Party of South Africa. We supported the US initiative and imposed sanctions on the South African regime. The majority of the colored and Indian population found the reforms insufficient and refused to participate in the elections of South Africa. The apartheid regime begins to gradually collapse. The government had to declare a state of emergency in large parts of the country. Revolution, my friends, is coming to South Africa. The date is now 1st of July 1985. At the beginning of the month, the next session of the Supreme Council is due to take place, where due to the death of Chernykov, a new chairman of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR will be elected. Support the appointment of Andrei Gromyko. Hey, by the way, what happened to my conspiracy? For almost 30 years, Andrei Gromyko is the main figure in our foreign affairs. For his strong and unyielding positions in disputes with the West, he got the nickname of Mr. No. However, for all this name, Gromyko is an advocate of peaceful coexistence. Now that he has moved to a new position, we need to find a new master in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The first is Yevgeny Tyazhelnikov. He used to head the Komsomol for quite a long time. He is known as a patron of Russian nationalists. In that case, he is out. The second candidate is Oleg Troyanovsky, former ambassador to Japan, who is a permanent representative of the Soviet Union to the UN. He is a very talented and empathetic diplomat. Okay, I can consider him. The third is Alexander Besmetnych, Americanist head of the US Department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, being known for his peaceful initiatives, and a man of great professionalism, broad worldview, and high culture. So basically, this man needs to be under KGB surveillance 24/7, and he needs to be behind bars or in a camp somewhere in Kamchatka. Why is he in Moscow? Obviously, it's not him. Then we have Edward Shevardnadze, first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Georgia, a person who is in no way connected with the structures of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So he's basically an outsider. In that case, I think Oleg Troyanovsky is the best candidate, a permanent representative of the USSR to the UN. Let's check on my conspiracy a bit now. Currently, I have arranged an investigation in the CPSU, use agent networks. The dominant faction is still the conservative Marxist-Leninists, followed closely by the moderates, followed by the neo-Stalinists, and then some minor powerful cliques are the reformers, the neo-Trotskyites, the social patriots, and the national liberals. There are 0 liberal Democrats. Very good. Now let me see. The World Festival of Youth and Students Preparations. In order to avoid possible conflicts, some party members propose to take measures to protect citizens from the possible harmful influence of foreigners, as this festival will take place in Moscow. It is necessary to limit contacts of Soviet citizens with foreigners in every possible way. According to secret decree intended for the special services, it was decided that it was necessary to limit, if possible, contacts between citizens and festival guests. Events where a free discussion could take place between participants in one way or another were removed from the festival program. Preparations began for the mobilization of people's vigilantes to accompany foreigners, and Moscow school children were sent to holiday camps for the duration of the festival. Let's see the politics. Mikhail Gorbachev. The conspiracy is still at 60% and his power is really low now, only 67 out of 1000. In contrast, Gromykov's power is 91 and Grigory Romanov's is 85. Wait, so does this mean Gromykov is theoretically more powerful than me? That is... Okay, continuing on. To decide the slogan of the World Festival. Fighting for victory over imperialism, solidarity, and Marxist change. Here in the homeland of the great Vladimir Lenin, you can directly feel how happy and deeply devoted our youth are to the noble ideals of Marxism and the struggle against imperialist oppression. The final report of the youth organization notes the brilliant organization of measures to prevent possible Western provocations. The vigilantes, together with the police, tried in every possible way to separate our own from the strangers and prevent free communication. Our special services managed to nip in the bud all the beginnings of anti-Soviet political discussions among foreigners. In addition to Soviet guides and translators, about 1,000 accompanying persons, experienced Komsomol workers from different regions of the Soviet Union were assigned to foreign delegations and groups. In the Western press, the 1985 World Festival in Moscow was called political theater, designed to dramatize support for the Soviet Union on the part of healthy and beautiful young people around the world. We don't really care what imperialist dogs feel about Marxist-Leninism. Rising global tensions have led to a deterioration in diplomatic relations with France. Paris accuses us of pursuing aggressive neo-colonial policies. France is one of the few powers in Western Europe that can resist the growing influence of USA. So maintaining friendly relations with them is useful and beneficial to us. Okay then, for this one point, I'm ready to compromise. Conclude a contract for a one-time supply of raw materials at discounted prices. But if this fails, comrade, if this brings more harm than good to the Soviet Union, then we shall never again make such deals with the French. Is that clear, Comrade Troyanovsky? Okay then, hang up. Star Wars. In March 1983, President Reagan announced the beginning of the development of the SDI, which involves the creation of anti-missile weapons in space with the aim of delivering an unanswered nuclear strike. This is extremely dangerous, and a group of Soviet scientists and specialists came to the conclusion that Reagan's SDI initiative most likely does not require immediate countermeasures, but they are fools. Former Defense Minister Dmitry Ustinov is interested in the development of a similar SDI systems. At the same time, some military officers propose returning to the conclusions of the Commission of Scientists led by Yevgeny Velikov. The Commission recommends an asymmetric response of SDI, which would cost less than a full-scale response program. We will never de-escalate, threaten to deploy your own response system, or start developing it. Let's develop our own response system. Today, Grigory Romanov announced the start of development of a Soviet analog of SDI. All Soviet research institutes and high-ranking military figures have begun their work and the necessary finances have been allocated in full. Our project, conventionally called SOV-SDI, is more realistic and thoughtful than the American one and provides for the launch of new spy satellites into orbit, the construction of radar stations throughout the country, the development and launch into space of satellites armed with laser weapons. Let's see how our Western partners start singing after its implementation. August 2, 1985. Crisis in relations with the United States of America. We have nothing to discuss with them. We don't care. North Korea is socialism with national specifics. Let me check on my conspiracy. It's at 75% power now. Good. Nothing is forgotten. The alleged grave of Nazi criminal and sadist Josef Mengele was found in Brazil recently. Unfortunately, this monster was not destined to suffer the punishment he deserved for doing criminal and inhumane experiments on prisoners. He managed to escape to Argentina and later to Brazil. Some public figures proposed to hold an anti-fascist month to once again remember the victims of fascism. Hold a conference with the Brazilian leader. In the USSR allied countries and Brazil, a large-scale anti-fascist month began, during which the topic of the atrocities of the Nazi regime in the Second World War became relevant again. Today in Moscow, the leaders of Brazil and the USSR met to conclude agreements on friendship, cooperation, and joint struggle against fascist tyranny and any other forms of racial discrimination. They laid flowers at the tomb of the unknown soldiers. The president of Brazil praised the invaluable contribution of the Soviet people in the fight against the Nazi totalitarian machine. But the internal political situation in Brazil leaves much to be desired. Apparently, the president of the new republic will not last long. The fate of a disgraced academician. In 1918, Nobel Peace Prize laureate and academician Andrei Sakharov, known for his dissident news, was stripped of all state awards and expelled from Moscow. He is a dissident. Why do we care about him? I'm not even going to read this. Do nothing about him. We denied him permission to travel to the West. Comrade General Secretary. Recently, our agents managed to contact CIA officer Ulrich Ames. Not so long ago, he was transferred to the department that organizes operations on the territory of our country, and therefore Ames gained access to the personal data of American agents in the USSR. He is now disillusioned with the way American foreign policy appears to him. Use his services only once, because for all we know he might be a double agent. But I am willing to take this risk one time. He gave us some information about the planned transfer of 3 CIA agents. After that, we were able to quietly arrest them one by one without attracting unwanted attention. Very nice. Vladimir Sherbetsky should head the government. Slowly, we move towards the cold, hard winter of 1985. Tanker wars. The war between Iran and Iraq has been going on for more than 5 years. Saddam Hussein wants to take control of Arabistan, part of Iran. Tanker conflicts continue for the next 2 years. Kuwait recently asked the superpowers to protect Kuwaiti tankers from continued attacks from Iran. No, under no consequences are we going to support the cruel, neo-feudal and Islamic fundamentalist regime of Iran. So even though the Americans are doing this, we will do nothing to respond. Let Khomeini die, for all we care. The Americans launched the military operation Sincere Intentions against Iranian aggression in the Persian Gulf. During the operation, there were many clashes between the US and Iran. After blowing up several Iranian frigates and drilling platforms, the US took control of the Persian Gulf. Ba'athist Saddam regime is better than Khomeini. The demo is over. Stay tuned to our social networks and expect new information about the game's release. I like this game, but of course, now we are going... Oh, let me tell you one interesting thing before we begin to create our new character. You can create an entirely new mod for the demo. Yes, you can write your custom events, you can design your custom characters, and you can potentially create an entirely new scenario. Like, what if, due to some advanced medical system, Joseph Stalin managed to live until 1985? You can do it. Yes, even the demo for this game can be completely changed and modified. Now let's do a quick custom character building, and after that, we shall move on. Create our own general secretary. I don't really have a photo at the moment. Let's increase his age to 70. No, let's decrease it. Let me see how young he can be. Oh, he's now 35. Okay, we can't let's keep him 40. Then diplomacy. Let him be a complete Dumbo at diplomacy and thrift, but let him be a KGB spy master. Let's his intrigue be 1. What's going on? Okay, faction, loyalty, trade. Let's create a anti-Atlanticist, sympathetic to neo-Stalinists, intriguer, radical, good. How many points do I have left to distribute? Okay, then let's do next. Oh, I forgot the name. But anyway, let's see a few quick events. Okay, so I guess that... Wait, let me check if the other characters in this one have any content. Let's click on this one. Oh, so 1991 scenario is not really ready yet. Okay, that's fine. That's completely fine. This is a demo, and already for a demo, this has a lot of content. Let's try maybe, let's try Mikhail Gorbachev. And yes, there are multiple types. One is the arcade mode, the realism mode, the anti-Soviet dream mode, the sandbox mode. I wonder what the sandbox mode does, and what does the last hero mode do? I don't really know. Let's keep clicking. Okay. Comrade Gorbachev is in power. The Euro missile crisis. So Gorbachev will declare a moratorium. We will take an extremely moderate path this time around. We will pursue an active and constructive policy. Very good. This time I've decided to bow completely to the Americans. I'm going to be in a race to become basically a slave of reformism. Who is the most reformist person here? Vladimir Dolgik? Let's have Dolgik. Market reforms. Very good. Money, 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 money. We will have market reforms. Open the country to Dengism. An outstanding business executive is needed. We want money, 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 money. Rubles, rubles, dollars, bills. Okay, this time let's promote the radical reformers. Okay, let's see the path of acceleration. By making widespread use of the achievements of the scientific and technological revolution, bringing the forms of socialist economic management in line with modern conditions, we must achieve a significant acceleration of socio-economic progress. We have to switch to the production of new generations of machine. It is planned to increase the growth rate of national income to 20 to 22%. Now what is this? Okay, let's continue with conciliatory rhetoric. Bow to Reagan. Ronald Reagan is the god of the Soviet Union. Capitalism is good. Okay, anti-alcohol campaign. I think that we can destroy the Soviet Union more if we decide to take a very hardline approach to fight drunkenness. You can't get into communism on vodka. On measures to overcome drunkenness and alcoholism and to eradicate moonshine, We have introduced prohibition in the country, just as the capitalist Americans had did before. If it worked for them, it will work for us. And now Moscow cartels will form. Large-scale Russian mafias will dominate the global trade. The Colombian drug cartels and the Italian mafia now have competition. Society is the norm of life, my friends. Many people are selling illegal quote unquote lemon tea. Campaign against racism. There is to be no campaign against racism. Try to mend relations. Henrik Vervo Air is not an enemy of global Marxist-Leninism. P.V. Botha is not an enemy of global Marxist-Leninism. The US is circulating angry comparisons with the Third Reich and the Soviet Union. Okay, let's see. Let's appoint the Americanist Alexander Besmertenich. Let's appoint him. Next, let's give young people carte blanche to criticize the superpowers. Allow free communication. The Soviet Union is bad. If it is bad, my friends, my children, then speak freely. And our slogan for this will be no government slogans. The government is weak. The only left-wing politician mentioned is Ernesto Che Guevara. The WFDY accuses us of trying to dilute the anti-imperialist orientation of the event. There is the emergence of new festival children, basically school children who are openly taking part in the festival and interacting with foreigners. Very good. Ronald Reagan. Well, if he is doing it, doesn't mean that we should do it. So ignore the provocation. Of course, Ronnie is doing this for the good of the world. We did not respond to it. We said that the scientists are criminally complicit. Turn a deaf ear. We do not care about some long dead Nazi. Next. Let Elena Bonner travel to the USSR for treatment. We are free. We are an open-air hospital. Next. Recruit him for ignore him. He was accused of espionage and sentenced to life imprisonment in America. Arrested for tax evasion. Okay. Prepare new economic reforms under Ryzhikov. Next. Oh, come on. Why is this event taking so long? Okay. The potential. Take note. I don't care. Let's go. Okay, so actually, going by our current doctrine of basically bowing to Reagan, I should do nothing. But since we had done it in our more serious game before this one during Andropov, this time let's protest against the US intervention and let's see what happens. Ayatollah Khomeini is a very good man, says USSR leader Mikhail Gorbachev. He is an ally of global socialism. He's fighting against Iraqi and American imperialism. The American side said that it is not interested in landing its troops on Iranian territory. The USSR officially protests. And that is the end of our demo, my friends. So I will be leaving a link to this game in the description below. You can download it if you want. There it is. And yes, you can also make your own custom mods for this demo if you want. And that is it. Additionally, also check out Tony Pro's Cold War generator, which allows you to generate an endless amount of possible alternate histories for the entire world. Like, even for example, places like Cuba. Look, here Cuba is ruled by Che Guevara in 1979. Or maybe you have Joe Biden, who did not join any party in this timeline. Or maybe he fell down a flight of stairs and became senile. Or maybe he got drafted for Vietnam and he became a hardline military genius called Gung Ho Uncle Ho. Or maybe something else. There are a lot of things, like Uganda has fractured in this timeline. Biafra is independent as of 1979. The Republic of Oman, that is something different. And the Greeks are still under their military junta in 1979. King Juan Carlos I was killed by the ETA. So I'm going to be leaving a link to this game and Tony Pro's Cold War generator down in the description. Do try it. Thank you, and glory to the revolution, my friends.